Welcome to Absolutely Fabulous. My name is Gillian Fennell, also known as Station Mum 101. I love everything about agriculture, especially the people and especially communicating about what makes Australian ag so special.
And I'm Katja Williams, a beef, cattle and cropping farmer from Dubbo, New South Wales. And I love all things ag, and I'm also known as the ultimate farm wife. Together, we are absolutely fabulous, and we are talking all things agriculture beyond the headlines.
And we can't wait to give our opinion to you, and we hope you enjoy it.
So let's get into today's episode. Hi Ag Fabs, and welcome back to another episode with Gillian and I. We are talking episode 5, and today we are talking about Australian Hemp Review and the Keep the Sheep Rally, which Gillian emceed last week in Canberra. But before we jump into all of that, let's do some chit chat. So Gillian, what's happening on station and with you this week?
Well, kitchen laundry, almost this close to being finished, still waiting for the oven to turn up. So I got out of baking a homemade treat for school camp, which is excellent because, oh my God, baking for other people, yeah, not my cup of tea. So they've got some Woolworths Anzac biscuits to take with them tomorrow. In Alice Springs at the moment, in my beautiful cabin at the Winter Sun Caravan Park. If you're ever going to come to Alice, it's cheap, it's clean, it's quiet and it's secure. They didn't pay me to say that, but I've been staying here on and off for about the past 15 years, so it's a pretty good place to stay. So Katja, what have you been up to? You busy over on your on your bustling enterprise?
I wrote some notes again because I'm starting to get serious baby brain. So farm-wise, it is silly season because we are just finishing up bull sales and the show circuit and everything else that goes with stud cattle. But that also means that we're a mixed cropping enterprise, like a mixed farming enterprise as well. So we are starting to jump into cutting hay and making hay and silage, doing all our preparations for harvest because that will be here before we know it. Ultimate Farm Wife wise, season 7, by the time this goes live, will have already launched its first episode for season 7, which is really exciting. So this season is a little bit different because we're not only focusing on family farming, so the integration into a family farm or back into a family farm and that whole family dynamic that we are known for over at the Ultimate Farm Wife. But we're also taking an extra aspect, which is talking about value adding to a family farming business. So sometimes the business is not big enough for you to have, a role and an identity as part of. So let's look at how you can see what the farm is already doing and value add to that. Whether that's like Airbnb, adding an extra crop, doing direct to producer products. So looking forward to that. So our first guest will be Fiona from Outback Lamb. She has a lot of insights to share, and also how she maneuvered around the family farming dynamic, being the daughter of a farmer. So we spoke about being the daughter of a farmer back in episode 2, I think it was, Gillian. So that works in nicely with that theme as well. And then next week we are heading, you will find both Gillian and I at the Australian Women in Agricultural Conference, where we will both be speaking as panellists.
And hopefully we'll be recording our podcast at the same place at the same time, which will be the first time we've ever done that. And, it's going to be awesome. I think there's so many excellent speakers booked. It's just going to be great. It's going to be a great few days.
Absolutely. So guys, if there's anything that you want to see in particular over that week, make sure you're jumping on our socials and you're letting us know so that we can get that and bring it to you.
And if you can't go, but you have a friend who's there and you want us to go and tap them on the shoulder and take a picture with them and post it on our socials, be sure to let us know because we're quite happy to do that. Grab them and say, hey, your friend at home said they wanted us to put you on the internet. And people really enjoy that sort of stuff, definitely.
Absolutely. We'll make that happen. So anything else you wanted to cover, Gillian, before we jump into our first episode today, which is hemp?
Oh, hemp. No, I'm good. Let's talk about hemp. It's going to save the world. Everything's going to fix climate change. We're all going to wear clothes made out of it and houses built out of it. It's going to be marvellous. Gonna smoke it, eat it. It's gonna be great.
So genuine there, Gillian.
Oh, every crop has its pluses and minuses, I guess. I think it's the people who've never grown a crop in their life that could probably use some education around different products and stuff.
Alrighty, so let's break it down. So, hemp to start off. Hemp is a type of cannabis, but unlike marijuana, it contains very low levels of THC, the compound that gets you high. So we are talking industrial hemp, not illegal getting high hemp. I thought that would be very specific. We need to clarify that.
which is have occurred like a small scale commercial trial of industrial hemp down in South Australia, and of course some local idiots decided they were going to break into the plot and have a crack at it, which is just come on guys, it's for making rope and stuff. It's not for smoking. The stuff you're going to smoke, people are growing that in their backyards, in their garden sheds and stuff. It's not in a big large scale commercial trial out in the middle of the paddock.
Absolutely. So the industry hemp that we're talking about is for seeds, fiber, oils. As Gillian said, it's going into medical grade use, it's going into clothing, it's going to building products, that kind of thing.
And it's a very versatile plant. There's nothing wrong with hemp per se, because it's been used for thousands of years in many different ways. I think where my sort of disparagement of it is not the crop itself. It's all these people who have never grown a crop in their lives and have never been responsible for any sort of farming enterprise saying, oh, well, you cotton guys should just give up growing cotton and grow hemp instead because it's going to save the world. And I think that's not helping anybody, least of all people who might want to grow hemp commercially. That sort of attitude's not going to help them, which is where these trials like AgriFutures and stuff are doing really sort of come into play. Because we can't just be growing stuff and making a massive loss, because that's not how business works.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone who's interested in the AgriFutures reports, we're going to link that in our show notes as well, so you can have a nice little peruse of that. They do have an information session coming up as well, which I think is towards the end of the month online, for anyone else who this does spark interest into and they want to look into it a bit more.
Yeah, educate yourself. And that's if you want to take on growing hemp commercially, then obviously who am I to tell you what to do with your business? And you obviously know more about growing stuff than I will ever do, because I can't even grow a lawn most of the time. But yeah, that's why these commercial trials and stuff are so important. So what did you learn about hemp, Katja? Because I've got I had a friend who's an agronomist in the cotton industry give me some information about hemp, so you might have learnt something very different than what I did.
Well, I did read a lot of the reports, but then I also went to mainstream media, and I did have a bit of a chuckle at the difference between the reports. The reports were very scientific, very much into, okay, what species are we going to grow in what areas, in what production, and what are the rates per hectare that we can get off and benefit from that going into, health, economy, trade, that type of thing. But when I went to mainstream media, it was very woo-woo. There's a big difference between what mainstream media is covering and what is actually coming out of these reports. So I found linking the two very difficult today. But I did want to touch on, probably before I answer your question, I did want to touch on a little bit about the hemp production line. And I had actually had a question for you on that. And I thought that might bring us round circle to answering your question again, if you don't mind. But the farm production line is very similar to any other crop. But if you're not familiar with cropping, you've got your sowing period. So you're taking the seed or the propagated plants and you're sowing them in the ground. Then you're growing them, so you're looking after them. And a lot of research that I read said that, it was eco-friendly. I did air quotes for that. It didn't need much pesticide, and that it was less water was needed to grow a productive crop. And then you've got the processing of it, which I think, from memory, there's no processing plants in Australia. Is that right, Gillian?
There's two, I believe, but they are for turning it into fibre. So what they do, and I don't even know like if they operate on a commercial scale or whether they're just small scale, they turn it into because you got, from what I can understand, and I don't know, the information I'm working on might not be out of this current trial. So there's the long, tall hemp that you make rope out of. Hemp rope is an excellent rope, been used for thousands of years. So it gets made into one sort of a product, and then you've got other sort of hemp, and it gets smooshed up, and they make it into something, and they put it in like building products, like compressed fibre and those sorts of things. Again, excellent use for it, but they're all very intensive processes, and they're very expensive, especially when they're happening in Australia. And if you don't get a great yield, and of course, if there's only these two processing plants, then they might not be anywhere even close to where the hemp grows, because hemp is quite temperamental compared to cotton. Yeah, so it's not as simple and as straightforward as a lot of people would have you believe, that, you know, we're just going to switch over from cotton to hemp and save the world and save the Murray-Darling and all these sorts of things that they believe but are not true.
Yeah. In regards to the watering side of it, I thought that it was surprising that they were saying requires less water than many crops, but anywhere I read was kind of fairly genetic. I thought that, very generic. I thought that, you know, a lot of other crops that we grow in Australia are genetically modified, which is a whole nother topic on itself, but genetically modified to need less water. So I didn't know whether that was neither a here nor there statement.
Well, it's hemp is not watered because it's thirsty. It's watered to keep it cool, because hemp does not like hot weather, which is, so when people say, oh, you know, it can easily replace cotton, it's like, I don't think it can, because, you know, hemp doesn't really like the heat that cotton can grow in, because cotton grows in some very, very hot areas, and it's not tolerant to cold either. It's a very sooky little plant. And yes, these trials and the CSIRO, they are working on breeding different types of plants and all these sorts of things. But then you get this sort of thing, though, the people who really like hemp and think hemp are going to save the world, they generally have an objection to GM crops.
Yeah.
So the quickest, easiest way to get a hemp plant that's more efficient water-wise and heat-wise and more resilient, those things, is to GM it, because that's how you get good plants quickly. But they don't want that. They want it to just be like all, you know, natural. Sunshine and rainbows and unicorns and natural. But when in a commercial sense, you can't do that. You need, science really needs to play a massive part in this, because if you want to have it efficient, you have to do it on scale, and to do it on scale, you've got to use a lot of science.
Absolutely. And I think that comes out of the top locations in Australia to grow hemp were Tasmania, Northern Rivers in New South Wales, and the subtropics in Queensland.
Yeah, so it's, you know, like when you think about where they grow cotton, it's hot and it's dry the majority of the time, and because it's GM cotton, uses a lot less water and a lot less pesticides. There's no pesticides currently approved for use on hemp in Australia, and apparently, well, it's a palatable plant. Like the seeds are very rich in oil, and apparently the oil's really good and tasty, and it's good for you and stuff. So it makes sense that bugs are going to really enjoy eating hemp as well. Yep. So it's really susceptible to insect infestation and stuff, which if you're a conventional cropper and your next door neighbour's growing hemp and he's just basically breeding a big mob of insects over there that are going to get hungry and come to your place, you're going to be the most unpopular farmer in the district. So there's all these different things to consider. So when, you know, if you're going to make the commercial decision to do whatever, then it's a lot of different things that you need to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And back on the health track that you were saying, like, that was one of the biggest impacts and important points that were being brought across, whether it was mainstream media, all the research reports, and that was that hemp seeds are a superfood, and they are rich in omega-3, omega-6 fats, and they are great for their therapeutic properties.
Like, so is fresh fish. You know, and if you think I'm going to eat this one food and it's going to balance out everything else that I do, like that's nonsense. And I like this notion, and this is another whole, we could do another big episode about what's a superfood. Yeah. Because, you know, all food is super because you need food to live. Like, it's just that if you don't eat it in the right quantities, then it can end up really bad for you. So, you know, to say that, oh, we need to give up growing this, because cotton also, you get cottonseed oil, because cotton, and that's used in a lot of deep frying and those sorts of things. And then that byproduct from making that, it goes then to feed livestock. So the whole cotton plant, and I'm not saying hemp can't be the same, but there's an established sort of usage of all the waste products and everything that come from cotton, and it's an accepted, and it's all been tested, and it's all been found incredibly safe. Whereas, and that's why we have these trials, to try and bring in another crop, because again, we can't rely on one crop for the rest of our lives, because that's how you end up in the situation like you've got with the bananas, with the Cavendish bananas. They're about the only banana that we grow commercially, and if he gets a disease, then no more bananas. And if you rely on bananas for your income, that's no good. It's just like, look at the potato famine. Take the British out of it, of course, because they had a lot to do with it too, me being of Irish descent and all that sort of stuff. Got to hate the British, but they had one type of potato, they got potato blight, people starved to death. So that's why we do have to invest in these different trials and different plants and different crops, but it's not going to happen overnight. And it may well be that you do investigate it and go, on a commercial scale, this isn't viable. So put this to one side and let's look at something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's in all the economy reports. They were saying that hemp would be a game changer for farmers in adding additional income streams, creating jobs in regional areas, and helping out the regional economy. But absolutely agree with what you said as well. But to what cost? It's great for money to be coming in and out of the area, but in what proportion is it doing that? And is it long-term sustainable? And that's what these trials are trying to work out for Australian growth.
Yeah, and then so that's why you do trials. That's why you have trials of different varieties. But I think what happens is that you get the media who are doing whatever the media does, and then you get lunatics who, for whatever reason, hate cotton. And this is where it comes back to, they hate cotton because they believe cotton's taking all the water. People are growing cotton because it's the best return on investment. They have those water allocations, or they buy that water allocation or whatever. So they're going to grow whatever gives them the best return on investment. They're not like beholden to cotton, like I just love cotton so much I'm going to grow it regardless. Because they're a business, they need to make money, and there's a market for cotton because cotton's a good fibre and it's a good plant to grow. What these people don't understand, the detractors of the cotton industry don't understand, is that the water's still going to be taken, and the people are still going to grow stuff with that water. It just might happen to be cotton, it might be grain, it might be something else. It's not about what they actually grow, it's about the water allocation. So leave the crop out of it. The crop's irrelevant. It's and that's thinking that hemp, who is a bit more water hungry than cotton anyway, is going to save the world, is it's bonkers. And that's, we could talk a lot about people's scientific literacy and all those sorts of things, but it came back to why I was in Canberra in the first place, is regulators and policymakers listen to idiots and not experts. And that's the biggest thing, the biggest problem that we have at the moment, because they're noisy and they've got nothing else to do with their time. And they quote all these studies that have been done by Mr. Moonbeam in his backyard. And that's another reason why we need to have proper, rigorous scientific trials that go, no, scientists looked at this and they said, these are the problems with it. It's scientific literacy is just, we really need to work on that as a society, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the other things that I learnt, which you asked me about earlier, is that the difference again in our import and export market for this product is so different, because Australia has such high standards. We have all these trials going into making, what is the best for our economy, what is the best for our farmers, what is the best for consumption, and what rulings are we going to put on this. Yep, as you said before, even the pesticides that we can spray on those crops to kill those bugs to get a higher quality product at the end that people will benefit from, all of that goes into the research. And when I was looking at the difference between imported hemp and even the small percentage of what we are exporting and using as well, goes in those same standards we talk about episode in and episode out, and that is, it is going to be more expensive to do in Australia because of our labour laws, because of our high standards. So we can actually import a product which is lower quality or similar quality, again, air quotes for those who aren't listening on the video podcast. And so that whole economy circle of life, if we're importing a cheaper, lower grade product and exporting a higher grade product, does that really benefit our local communities? Does it really benefit those who are wanting to use these products for seed, for oil, for medicinal use?
Yeah, and it comes down to, like, because of, we do still live in a free country for the time being. We're not too overly regulated when we talk about who gets to grow what or whatever. If you look at it and you decide, I want to grow this, and like your podcast that you're doing, like the Ultimate Farm Wife podcast, and you're going to look at value adding and stuff, if there's the capacity to grow this crop and do the paddock to plate type of thing, go ahead and do it. Like, more power to you. And I don't have a problem if a grower decides they're going to grow something and they want to make money out of it, get stuck into it. I don't have a problem with growers choosing what they want to do. I have a real issue with people then latching onto this. Oh, well, look at the people down the road, they're growing hemp commercially and they're doing X, Y, and Z. Okay, well, they're growing like 3 hectares of it and they're doing X, Y, and Z with it. They're not growing 3,000 hectares of it. And it's like comparing apples to oranges, and you can't. That's the problem, that people think because one person is doing it within their operation, then the whole industry should be able to just take it up. And it's not solving what the actual root of the problem is. Not that there's a problem with taking water for irrigation. It's what they believe the problem is. Yeah. And the type of crop has got nothing to do with that, which is trying to convince people of that is just because then it gets demonized. And like we see it a lot in the beef cattle industry. It's like, oh, well, beef cattle producers are just knocking down all the trees. I don't see you talking to the broad scale croppers about that, or the people growing fruit and vegetables, or the people building houses. Like, for some reason, it's just the beef cattle producers who are responsible for knocking down all the trees. It's never about sheep or wool. And it's because we've been demonized. So we're greedy and we don't care about the environment. And they say the same thing about cotton growers, that it's just old and tired. And it's, I don't even know why it's valid, but apparently there's certain agricultural industries that are worse than others, and we're worse people than other people. So it's fascinating.
Gillian, was there anything else that you learned? What were the pros and cons? What did you find out else?
I did learn something, that hemp as a crop is really sticky, like to touch, and that makes everything about it a nightmare. Going into the crops to do your checks, because apparently, not that I know, but this is what I've been told, you go out in the crops and you've got to look at the leaves and shit like that, and like see how many bugs are on each stem, so then you know when to spray and all that sort of thing. Walking out there, you get covered in the stuff that the hemp is naturally covered in. Makes processing a nightmare because you can't even harvest it because it jams up all your gear, and so it slows everything down. It makes everything more expensive. And it's just a really unpleasant, sticky, and it smells. So then it warms up, and of course plants doing what plants do, release more of their smell into the air. And if you're not into that sort of smell, you might not enjoy it. It's not. It's probably not a crop to grow if you want to stay popular in your local community, is something I'd recommend. But given that it's really only suited at this current time with the current plants to really high value areas, land areas, I don't see it taking off commercially. So but I think you're probably better off, if you want to grow hemp, grow medicinal marijuana. Like, there's probably a better market and a better return for that. So get stuck into that too. Like, do whatever you got to do to make a dollar, really.
We're going to link some other podcasts that have been covering these similar topics in our show notes. So have a look at those if it has sparked your attention. There is, hemp itself is a multi-billion-dollar words today. Hemp itself is a multi-billion-dollar business, and it is making, headlines around the world, not just in Australia, on a regular basis. So there's plenty of information points, but definitely fact check them with the research that is being done through trial and studies. As Gillian mentioned there are different crops for different reasons, and in Australia, it is not legal to consume anything that does have the THC in it, and the products that they're talking about selling have low or no THC in them. So I thought I just wanted to clarify that point before we wrapped up today.
Yeah, we're not saying, like, go out the back in your greenhouse and grow an illegal crop. Please don't take that away from the podcast today. We're not endorsing criminal behaviour. We don't encourage that here at Ag Fats. That's not what we're about.
Absolutely not. So, guys, whether you are one of our urban listeners, whether you are cropper, whether you've participated in these trials and you want to bring more information and light to what Gillian and I have covered, jump on the socials. Our socials were a little bit quiet this week, considering we did have a delay in getting last week's episode up and running. I had little children who came into my office space and touched everything. So it just took a little bit longer to finishing the editing, and actually needed a computer mouse that worked because they lost the little USB drive. So guys, jump on the socials. Tell us what you think. Are you pro or are you against hemp? If you are against, marijuana or something like that, you need to be very specific in your comments, because that's not what we were talking about today. We're talking about the commercial growth of hemp. Have we had our first urban listener reach out yet, Gillian?
I got one listener who said, I'm not quite urban, I'm on the edge of Melbourne. I said, close enough.
Close enough. What did they think? What did they have to say?
They're really excited about it, because they said they like the chit chat, they like the sort of back and forth and that sort of stuff. I do need a new microphone, apparently. I said that is true, but I'm poor, so we'll just have to wait until I can save up a little bit to get some better equipment. But yeah, and it's that we explain it quite simply, and it's not, we don't muck around and like, we give our opinions, but we're not out to hurt anyone. It's just trying to build a bit of a bridge, and they really appreciate that. So they're going to keep listening, and they're going to recommend it to their friends, because, they work in the hairdressing industry, so they get a lot of their clients say, oh, well, I saw this on the news, and they say, oh, well, you know what, maybe you should listen to this. So I said, maybe you could just play it in the hairdressing salon. That'd be great.
On repeat.
Yeah. But no, I'm really pleased that we are starting to reach people, because that's part of it. We want to talk about our lives and our industry, and not just say what needs to be fixed and what needs to be changed, but what's good about it, because there's a lot of good about agriculture. And just, can not convince people, but just invite people into our world from all around the world, all around Australia, and just to share those sort of chats and stuff that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got a message this week, which I had a great laugh about. I love getting messages from everybody, so keep those coming. The listener's question was, we've heard a few times what Gillian's opinion is about raw milk product consumption. So if this is your first episode you're listening to, Gillian is against raw products.
Generally.
So they wanted to know what my take on it was, and I think we could have a whole topic based around this question. So Gillian and I are actually going to cover raw milk in next week's episode. So stay tuned for that. You can find out a little bit more about Gillian's opinion, and then I will add mine in there as well. I think you'll be a little bit surprised where I sit on the fence with that.
I don't think I'll be surprised, because I can see your face when I say stuff about raw milk.
Guys, if you want to have a guess about where I stand on raw milk, we might do a social tile this week and run a poll on that. And if you do want some hints, go and look at the video podcast, which is on YouTube. But that's all I had sort of for that section there. Gillian, did you want to say anything else before we jump into topic 2?
No, let's talk about topic 2. I'll leave you and your raw food. Yeah, you do you. I don't eat sushi either, so I'm very conservative.
Right. So topic number 2. Gillian was the MC for Keep the Sheep Rally in Canberra, and she is going to tell us all about the experience and being there. Actually, before we jump in, if I may, I did have another question written down about that, because in last week's episode, we spoke about what to appropriately wear to a formal dinner or a gala event, and we spoke about wearing jeans and a t-shirt. Gillian, did you get let into Parliament House in jeans and a t-shirt?
I did get let into Parliament House in jeans and a t-shirt, but I did have a jacket on over the top. But so you can't go down into you can't go into the house, like down onto the floor of the house. I'm not a politician, so I didn't have to like meet certain dress standards, but you go to Parliament and there's dress standards on the door, like when you come in, about what you have to wear, and they're pretty cash because they do get a few tourists and school groups and stuff through there. But yes, I went to Parliament House in jeans and a t-shirt and a hat, so that was a lot of fun. And the people who work at Parliament House, like, they're all great. Like the people who actually do work there, like not so much politicians, but the people who work there, they're really good fun and they're really good at their job.
Right. With that said, jump into telling us all about the rally.
So, yeah, the National Ag Rally, like, I was so super excited to be asked to MC that, because obviously it's huge to do that, and that's such an honour to be asked to represent my industry. And all I wanted to do was do my industry proud and really, like, help my industry speak for itself, I guess. And it was just such a cool day. Like, the weather was perfect, beautiful day. The trucks were cool. The trucks were awesome. It was so well organised. Like, big shout out to the Keep the Sheep team, and especially Dr. Holly, who just, UHF round her neck, running everything to a tight time frame every day. Just awesome. It was just incredible. And, the vibe was so cool. We had live music. We had food trucks. We didn't have any rubbish bins, but someone was dispatched at the last minute to go and get some bin bags. And if you see my social media, it was left spotless. There was not an ounce or scrap of rubbish left in the whole vicinity. It was perfect. And, everyone was just really excited. And, like, yes, people are angry. Yes, people are frustrated. But we still want to have those constructive, positive conversations. This is not about making... The only demand that we have is that when decisions are made about us and our industry, is that we are taken into consideration first and our opinions are taken more seriously. And I've had a few discussions about this online, and people say, why should farmers need to be considered first? And I say, well, okay, well, it's like female health, So you like to say no uterus, no opinion when it comes to women's health and birth control and access to safe abortions, that sort of stuff. So maybe it should be no farm, no opinion. Because it's our lives, it's our livelihood. It doesn't affect you. You live in inner city Sydney. So why should your opinion be weighted the same as mine? Like, it's like asking me for my opinion on the public transport network in Melbourne. I know nothing about it. I may never use it. It's not going to affect my day-to-day life in the slightest. So why should my opinion count more than someone who uses it every day? And I think that's the only demand that we have. Everything else is, we just want to have an open dialogue. We just want to talk. We just want to make sure that we can have some certainty and some security around our future. And the people there, there's some great signs. There were some great people in the crowd. We only one random guy down the front shouting out questions. Pauline Hanson interacted with him. I told him to go away, but he came back again. So Pauline talked to him, but that was whatever. We had one singular ban live export protester stood up behind me in the stage, and at least she came. Our ag minister and our prime minister and our deputy ag minister, those three, like, you have a responsibility to talk to us. They never came. They set up in Parliament House.
I am surprised at that.
Oh, I'm not surprised at all. But given that, like, we have an ag minister, we have a deputy ag minister, and we have a prime minister it's like, people say, well, why should they talk to you? Well, it's literally their job. Yeah. It's their job to talk to people who have a problem with their portfolios and what they're doing. So, yeah, they didn't come.
And especially when so many people who were there had travelled so far to be there, to open up the dialogue, to speak to them, to have that conversation. Like, you were all there to have that conversation, to show your support for the industry, and they couldn't even come out and have a chat to you guys.
It's like, what were they afraid of? And I think they were afraid, to put it honestly. I think they were afraid that we were going to be aggressive and hateful, because that's how they perceive us, because I think that's what they want us to be. So they can just write it off as angry, dumb farmers. And that's not true. We would have listened. They might have got a few boos from the crowd when they said complete nonsense, but that's, if you say complete nonsense in front of a crowd of people who don't agree with you, well, you're going to get that. But, the crowd was really respectful, and they would have valued they would have a lot more respect for our ag minister and for anyone else from the Labor side of government if they had come down. Now they've completely written them off. It's like, well, they won't even front us. So what are they afraid of? What are they, it's, and I think I've got so much respect for everyone in that crowd there. They all, they're not kids, but they all had the right attitude. They didn't get, violent or aggressive or anything like that. When in some cases, when you think about some of the policies and what they're doing to people's businesses, I wouldn't be surprised if they did, because they're being really treated unfairly.
Yeah.
We didn't do anything. We're here. These are our problems. We want to talk about it. Come and talk to us. And they didn't bother. So it's just like, oh, well, we can't even talk to you guys now because, you're too afraid to come and talk to us. So not only are they ignorant in the eyes of agriculture, they're also cowards as well. And I think if there's one thing that Australian farmers really dislike, it's a coward. I don't think they did themselves no favours in not coming down.
Well, a lot of the Australian top characteristics that people love is the fact that a lot of us have a backbone and might be passionate, but we have reasons behind that passion and we have motivation behind that passion. And if you're not going to interact with us, then that's really disappointing from them. So do you think the objectives, even though they didn't come out of Parliament House and they didn't engage with you guys, do you still think that the objectives of the rally were achieved? And where do they think that now leaves the movement?
I think the rally was a starting point. So a lot of people believe that a rally is like an ending point. So you have a big public sort of thing and then you get what you want. This is not the case for agriculture. This is a slow burn. So it's taken us probably 10 years to get to this point to have a rally in the first place. And people say, oh, you were only doing it because you hate Labor. We don't hate anyone. What we hate is when people make policies that aren't fit for purpose. And a lot of the agricultural policies at the moment are not fit for purpose. And they've come from both sides of the house. And I said as much to Littleproud and Dutton when they were on stage. So nobody got a free ride. I wasn't there to piss in anyone's pocket because I'm not a fan of politicians at the best of times. But Labor's the one we have to deal with at the moment. Labor's the one who's introduced the most sort of unpopular, I guess, or unsuitable agricultural policies just recently. And they're not listening to the agricultural industry of Australia. They're listening to everyone else first, and our concerns and needs are coming last. And then we wonder why regional Australia is dying. Well, it's because the mainstay of that, area is slowly being whittled away at through over-regulation and poor policy decisions and all that sort of stuff. But there's an election coming up. Yeah. So I guess what we put every single politician on notice that we're here, we're not going away, and this is what we want. And we had Peter Dutton shake his fist and say, I will tell you this and I will tell you that. And I said, well, that's great, but you haven't listened because we've just finished telling you. Yeah. We don't want to be told. We want to tell you. It's not the other way around. And the look, I've got a photo of it, and the look on his face, because I didn't realise the photographer was in the crowd, obviously, but I've got the microphone and my clipboard, and I'm really like, bah! And the look on his face is just gold, perfection. It's just like, mwah, chef's kiss. And David Littleproud has been very, he gets a lot of criticism because apparently he's owned by the mining lobby. And I did say this to him. I said, I don't know, David, could be true, could be not. But people claim that you're owned by the minerals lobby. So, what guarantee have we got that if it comes down to it, agriculture versus mining, what side are you going to fall down on? And surprise, surprise, got a very politician answer of no answer. So take from that what you will. But yeah, all sides of politics and all the independents, none of the independents came down. Oh no, Jackie Lambie came down, Pauline Hanson came down, Bob Carter came down. And yeah, so none of the Teals came down, whatever you want to call them. I know they're technically independents, but whatever. We're not going to, we have expectations, and, it's going to be consistently applied pressure at every turn. And so I think that's the sort of attitude we have to take forward. We've got to be positive. We've got to continue to engage, but we have to be very firm about what we want and how we want it to happen and how we want it to look. And that's everyone. We all have to stand together on this. Can't be ducking in to have barbecues with the ag minister when she should have been down fronting the rest of the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So because we do have an election year coming and the rally was a start point for the industry, what do we need to be doing between now and the election to make sure that we are being heard, that we are pushing the envelope, to use like some of their terms, to progressing in the industry? How are we getting a standpoint for where we are? Can people still jump on signing the petitions?
For sure, get on and sign that petition. And also, if you're a primary producer, if you're doing any sort of agriculture, join your state farming organisation, wherever that might be, or in some cases your peak industry council. So, we've got sheep producers, wool producers, cattle Australia, GICA, goat industry Australia, cropping, grain producers. You've got a peak industry, like melons. Everyone's got a peak industry council or a state farming organisation. Join at least one of them.
Yeah.
In many cases, the membership fee is nominal. If you can't afford to, because I know some of them are based on how much you produce or whatever. If you're not interested in actually voting for leadership and you don't want to have a heap of votes, there's usually a membership tier that's just like membership and you get one vote. Cool. At least then you're on the mailing list and you will get kept in the loop with everything that's happening, and you will also get the opportunity to reply and to respond to any consultation that they do, because that's how these membership-based organisations work. The board or the policy council, whoever they're set up, will come up with a position and they'll say to their members, what do you think about this? And the members who respond, obviously, they're the ones who are going to be taken into account. So if you don't participate, you forfeit your right to complain. So I say it a lot, but it is very, very true. And some SFOs that do it the other way around. They have like regional councils and regional committees, and they come up with ideas and they go up to the board and the board adopts them. Get involved, get engaged. Even if you don't want to be a part of it per se, at least understand and learn what's going on and just keep it in the back of your mind, because we're all busy. We all have jobs. Lobbying government is a full-time job, but we already have 2.5 jobs at home already, most of us. So it's unrealistic to expect that everyone can be as involved, but at least be aware and at least sort of understand. And if you have a question or if you want to know how something works or why they arrived at that position, ask. Ask them politely. Don't be, feeding it to them on social media when you don't even understand how they arrived at that position in the first place, because that's not helpful. Because politicians are very adept at using the divide and conquer strategy. When you look at how our ag minister has taken one section of the agricultural community and is making it their little pet, and they're getting preferential treatment as opposed to conventional agriculture, that's a problem. Because divide and conquer is a very effective strategy and it works.
Yeah.
That's why they keep doing it. So don't let yourself be sucked in and drawn into that nonsense, because you're there today and tomorrow you'll be on the outer. So don't do it to yourself and don't do it to your industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, we'll grab the link and pop it in the show notes, so that you can sign that petition if you haven't already. Get involved in those local policy
Advisory groups.
Get involved in your local policy advisory groups and just start educating yourself towards this next election, about, which hasn't been called yet, but who is it in your local area who you need to support to be able to get who you want into the positions to support you and your industry. I'm going to leave that very broadly because I don't want to tell you what to do or who to vote for.
And I'm not telling you who to vote for either. And it may well be that you have a local politician who knows nothing about your industry. Don't assume that every politician has the same amount of knowledge about agriculture as you do, because most of them don't. So now's your opportunity to, before they're elected, before they even announce that they're running, bring them out to the farm, invite them to a few grower barbecues or whatever, build a relationship with them. Because even if they are part of a party that's going to make a decision that you object to, if you have an existing relationship with them, you're much more likely to get your phone calls, your emails responded to, and you're much more likely to have a better ongoing thing. Because a lot of them don't know what they don't know. Yeah. If they come up with an idea and you say, that's not going to work, don't just hate on them, explain to them. hopefully before they make a public announcement, because getting a politician to walk backwards on something that they've already announced, practically impossible. So yeah, get to people now, build a relationship with them, because that's what's going to sort of carry us through this, is our relationships, the strength of relationships that we build.
Absolutely. So guys, keep talking to us on our socials, keep tagging people who you think will enjoy the content that we are putting out on this channel. Keep suggesting articles and topics that you want us to cover. We're covering raw milk next week because we've been asked about raw milk. So keep doing those suggestions, keep contacting us, keep tagging people, and we love to hear from you all. We're still looking forward to bringing out more and more of this content. If you know someone who wants to do a sponsorship, shout out or do some promotion, let us know as well. We'd love to have a chat to them so that we can give back to the AgFab community even more than we are already. And if you are listening on a podcast platform, reviewing and giving us our little rating stars helps other people find this podcast as well. So that's where we want to leave you guys this week. We look forward to seeing you next week, and we'll talk to you all very, very soon.
Bye.